looking for the best pre-built gaming PC 2024. So today, we'll cover everything that you need to know to buy the best pre-built gaming PC in 2024, and we will make specific product recommendations for best budget pre-built gaming PC, best 1440p pre-built gaming PC, and best 4K pre-built gaming PC in late 2024. Let's jump into it. The graphics card, also called the GPU, is the #1 most important part of buying the best pre-built gaming PC in 2024. Now, the graphics card determines how many frames per second, or FPS, that you can get at the resolution that you want to play at, 1080p, 1440p, or 4K. Of course, some games are harder to run, particularly single-player titles like Cyberpunk 2077, while many multiplayer competitive titles like CS2 and Overwatch 2 are much easier to run and will give you a lot more FPS. You also need a graphics card with enough video RAM, called VRAM for short, and that's different than the system RAM that only the CPU uses. Without enough VRAM, many newer AAA titles like Hogwarts Legacy or The Last of Us Part 1 will stutter, while others will just look terrible. This primarily impacts single-player titles and has less of an impact on competitive multiplayer games like Valorant. Though we have seen it impact games like Halo recently. I recommend at least 8GB of VRAM for budget 1080p pre-built gaming PCs, at least 12GB of VRAM for 1080p or 1440p pre-built gaming PCs, and 16GB of VRAM for 4K pre-built gaming PCs. So what GPU should you get? Well, AMD, Intel, and Nvidia all make graphics cards. Nvidia is dominant in the pre-built gaming market, so we're going to focus on their graphics cards. Also note that we're currently awaiting the next generation of graphics cards in 2025, like Nvidia's RTX 5000 series, but they often release first to the PC building market. Then it usually takes a couple months to see pre-built gaming PCs with them, so I wouldn't necessarily expect to see pre-built gaming PCs with RTX 5000 series graphics cards until near the middle of 2025. Looking at benchmarks by TechSpot and VRAM amounts, for 4K gaming, the fastest GPU right now is the RTX 4090 24GB GPU, followed by the RTX 4080 and 4080 Super 16GB GPUs, and finally the RTX 4070 Ti Super 16GB GPU. For 1440p GPUs, in addition to the ones I just listed, we've got the RTX 4070 Super 12GB, followed by the RTX 4070 12GB non-Super, the RTX 4060 Ti 16GB GPU, and the RTX 3060 12GB GPU. Note there are 8GB versions of the 4060 Ti and RTX 3060, which I only recommend for budget gaming PCs. You might also find the AMD Radeon RX 7600 XT 16GB. Then we've got our budget 1080p gaming GPUs like the RTX 4060 Ti 8GB, RTX 4060 8GB, RTX 3060 8GB, and the RTX 3050 8GB. You might also find the Radeon RX 7600 8GB, which is about as strong as an RTX 4060. The #2 most important part of buying the best pre-built gaming PC in 2024, it's the CPU. Now, your CPU is important in your pre-built gaming PC because it needs to be fast enough to keep up with your graphics card. For any graphics card above an RTX 4070, I recommend an AMD Ryzen 7000 or 9000 series CPU, which essentially have the same performance. Especially popular CPUs are the Ryzen 5 7600X and Ryzen 7700X, and the recently released Ryzen 5 9600X and Ryzen 7 9700X. Ryzen 9 CPUs like the Ryzen 7950X or 9950X, those are really more for professional production users, though they are also fine for gaming if you get a good deal on a pre-built with them. The fastest gaming CPU right now is the Ryzen 9800X 3D, followed closely by the 7800X 3D. Both of which take advantage of vertical cache, which greatly benefits gaming. For budget pre-built gaming PCs with an RTX 4070 graphics card or lower, Ryzen 5000 CPUs are also fine, like the Ryzen 5600X or 5600 and the 5700X. I would avoid all the Ryzen 8000 series CPUs like the Ryzen 8600, as they were designed for AI applications and have limited graphics card bandwidth. They're just not appropriate for gaming PCs, though I do keep seeing them in pre-built, so I want to warn you away from them. But Jason, doesn't Intel make CPUs as well? Well, Intel has had major issues in 2024. Their 13th and 14th gen CPUs, particularly the more powerful ones with a K in their name, like the i7-14700K, have had degradation issues. That means they were dying for no reason. Now, Intel said this issue could impact any of their i5, i7, and i9 CPUs of the 13th and 14th gen, but not the i3s and not the 12th generation CPUs. Intel says they now have released a BIOS update to stop CPUs from dying, but I am not yet ready to recommend them. Also, Intel's recently released Core Ultra 200 CPUs are a buggy mess that I cannot currently recommend, though Intel has acknowledged this and they say that they're working to improve stability and performance by the end of the year. So the only Intel CPUs I can recommend right now are the 12th gen CPUs that you'll often find in more budget pre-built gaming PCs and have similar performance to Ryzen 5000 series CPUs. How much system RAM should the best pre-built gaming PC in 2024 come with? While 16 gigabytes, it's still fine for most games. In testing, we've seen a couple of new AAA titles occasionally micro-stutter with only 16 gigabytes of RAM. It isn't game-breaking, and we're only talking about a couple of titles right now, but if you can get 32 gigabytes of RAM, then I would do so. But in the pre-built market, this amount of RAM is usually only available in the mid-range or higher-end gaming PCs. In terms of DDR4 versus DDR5 RAM, there really isn't much for you to do, as all the mid-range and higher-end gaming PCs come with CPUs that use DDR5, while more of the budget systems use the older CPUs that use DDR4. We'd also prefer to get RAM in pairs of sticks, as we can lose performance with just one stick of RAM, though the introduction of DDR5 has lessened this penalty. For RAM speed, DDR4 is usually 3200 or 3600, while for DDR5 we'd ideally want to see 6000 speed for Ryzen 7000 and 9000 series CPUs, but anything 5200 or faster, it's probably fine as well. Let's talk about CPU cooling and case airflow for your gaming PC. You don't want to thermally throttle your PC because that's bad. For simple guidance, if you have a Ryzen CPU with 6 cores or an Intel CPU without a K in its name, then low profile downdraft style coolers are generally fine, though we always appreciate seeing at least a budget tower air cooler. For 8-core or bigger Ryzen CPUs or i5 Intel CPUs with a K in their name, at a minimum, we want a budget tower air cooler or 120mm liquid AIO cooler. For 12 or 16 core count Ryzen CPUs or i7 or an i9 CPU with a K in the name, like the 13700K, consider at least a 240mm all-in-one liquid cooler or a big air cooler. Liquid coolers are more common for better shipping protection. How upgradable is your pre-built gaming PC in 2024? If your system is assembled by a system integrator, or SI for short, that means they take regular, off-the-shelf parts that a regular PC builder like me would use, and this ensures that everything's going to be upgradable in the future. These companies include CyberPower, Skytech, ABS, iBuyPower, and others. If instead you buy from a company that manufactures its own non-standard parts, called original equipment manufacturers or OEMs for short, that's like Dell, Lenovo, HP, or others, then you'll likely get at least a couple of parts that may not be upgradable. Some OEMs like HP in their Omen lineup have taken the extra step to make sure that the most commonly upgradable parts, like RAM for instance, will work with off-the-shelf kits. The trade-off comes down to saving a little bit of money on an OEM pre-built gaming PC or spending just a bit more for a fully upgradable system from a system integrator. Note you can't have a lot of system integrators build you a custom PC, but this is often quite expensive, and in my opinion, buying a pre-built system offers far better value for most gamers. Let's jump into the best pre-built gaming PC 2024 product recommendations. Now links are down in the video description, and we will update that list of best deals every couple days, especially during the holiday shopping season, so check out that list for the latest deals. A fire emoji means it's a great deal. 2 fire emojis means it's an amazing deal for the price. Let's jump into the best pre-built gaming PC 2024 for 4K gaming. Remember, 4K gaming, we're looking for a GPU with 16 gigs or more of VRAM, 32 gigs of system RAM on an Ryzen CPU, because Intel CPUs are having problems right now. Let's jump into, and there's not a lot of these left, by the way. They have discontinued the RTX 4090 and 4080 as long as most of the 4000 series, but the ones that are in the most shortage right now are the 4090s. So if you're looking for these, go ahead and snap them up. I don't know if you're going to see huge deals on them during the holiday shopping period here, but check this out. This is very indicative of what's out there. And Skytech is the one that tends to have the Ryzen CPUs that we're looking for and the RTX 4090s. This is the Skytech Gaming Azure. This is just the name of the build in this particular case. They have different configurations. This particular configuration, 1 terabyte NVMe SSD. I'd love to see 2 terabytes on their Skytech, but you can always add in an additional SSD. It's pretty easy to do in the future. 32 gigs of RAM, so 2 thumbs up there. 1000 watt PSU, 360 millimeter all-in-one liquid cooler. You often find liquid coolers at this end just because they ship better than the big air coolers, which can actually shear off during shipping sometimes. So overall, great system, $3,400. I don't expect we're going to see huge discounts on these systems because, again, they are running out of them. All right, dropping down to the RTX 4080 Prebuilt Gaming PCs in 2024. This is actually a 4080 Super. Same performance level between the 4080 and the 4080 Super. It doesn't really matter which one you get. $2,400. It's $1,000 less than the system we just looked at. And it's got a Ryzen 7 7800X3D, one of the fastest gaming CPUs on the planet. The 9800X3D did just launch, and there are a couple of PCs out there. However, 7800X3D also super fast. Faster than any other CPU out there except the 9800X3D. We've got that RTX 4080 Super, 16 gigabyte of VRAM on that, which is 2 thumbs up. And then we've got 64 gigs of DDR4 5600 system RAM. That's a ton and tons of system RAM right there. A 2 terabyte NVMe SSD, so 2 thumbs up there, and a 360 millimeter all-in-one liquid cooler. Overall, fantastic system here for $2,400. Remember, there's a lot of different configurations options typically at this price point. So if you want a cooler looking case, if you want that kind of atrium style case with very similar specs, basically the same specs, this is another one to look at, $2,499. I will note some of these, by the way, are coming with the NVIDIA game bundle with the Indiana Jones game on them. Check that out down here in the description, basically under the savings. Some of our Newegg also come with that. This one happens to come with it for $2,499, so maybe that's a great pickup. 32 gigs of system RAM versus 64 gigs of system RAM on the one we just looked at. You're basically kind of paying the price here for that really super cool looking case. $2,499 over at Amazon. Let's jump into the best pre-built gaming PCs under $2,000. And these are still 4K gaming capable or super high frame rate 1440p gaming capable out there as well. CyberPower PC, another system integrator. They're using off-the-shelf parts, very similar to Skytech out there. They do a really good job. This is coming with a Ryzen 7 7800X3D. So again, one of the fastest gaming CPUs on the planet right now with the RTX 4070 Ti Super 16 gigabyte. Pretty fast GPU for either 4K gaming or 1440p gaming right now. 32 gigs of system RAM, although this is not RGB RAM, by the way. So maybe that matters to you, maybe it doesn't. It's got a lot of other RGB elements in it, including the 240 millimeter all-in-one liquid cooler. I absolutely love this case, by the way. It looks super awesome up close. Just a really great atrium style case. And this comes with a 2 terabyte NVMe SSD, as well as it is offering the Indiana Jones game bundle with it right now for $1,999 over at Amazon. Just some other examples of a great RTX 4070 Ti Super 16 gigabyte deals right now. And Newegg is running this deal over for $1,900, a little bit cheaper than the previous one. And it's in the Montech King 95 PC case, which is super cool. It's actually got a curved front to it. Looks amazing. Very similar setup to what we just looked at, except it's got a 1 terabyte NVMe SSD, not a 2 terabyte NVMe SSD. So slightly smaller capacity on the SSD. Again, it's easy to drop in SSDs in the future, but it does come with a 360 millimeter AIO cooler. A 240 millimeter or 360 millimeter coolers are absolutely fine, by the way, for the 7800X3D. Does not need this much cooling, but there's nothing wrong with overkill cooling, as I often like to say. This one does not seem to come with a free game, by the way, but $1,899, still great deal over at Newegg. So rounding out our 4K gaming capable pre-built PCs out there, we've got the ABS Ruby for $1,649, also with an RTX 4070 Ti Super 16 gigabyte GPU. You're like, Jason, what's the difference between this one and the ones you just showed me for like $250 more than this? Well, primarily, first of all, this is ABS, which is Advanced Battle Stations. That is Newegg's in-house brand. Newegg is one of the largest retailers in the US for PC parts. And what they often do is they take their off-the-shelf parts, regular parts like I would use, for instance, to build a regular gaming PC, and they put them together as a pre-built like this. One thing I really like about Newegg's in-house brand, they list exactly what part you're going to get for every single item. Every single item here except the cooler, which I recognize is a Cooler Master. It's a Hyper 212 variant, basically. So in order to get this GPU power, we're sacrificing a little bit on this gaming CPU. We're going with a Ryzen 7 7700X. I think that's perfectly adequate. 7800X3D, a little faster, but this is perfectly fine. And instead of like a liquid cooler, we're going to go with a budget tower air cooler, perfectly adequate. I also notice we're using slightly slower RAM, and we're using 4 sticks of it at that slower speed, absolutely fine, and a 1TB NVMe SSD. Overall, if you're kind of more of a bargain hunter, you still want to get similar GPU power, and you're just looking for your best bang for your buck, this is a really good deal. Now let's jump into the best Prebuilt Gaming PC 2024 for 1440p gaming. So this is targeting specifically 1440p gaming. Yes, you can play a number of games in 4K. However, 12 gigs of VRAM, I would definitely recommend you stay with 1440p, and you should get tons and tons of frames. The RTX 4070 Super is a very, very fast GPU. Let's look at this model here, $1,649, because most of these are going to have a 4070 Super, and they're going to be considerably cheaper than this. So let's go through why this one is more expensive than some of the other ones we're going to see. Well, obviously it comes with the Montech King 95 case. That's a super cool atrium style PC case here. Comes with a 360mm all-in-one liquid cooler, and it comes with the Ryzen 7800X 3D. Again, right now, the second fastest gaming CPU on the planet, and it's not even close between this and the CPUs that follow it. But with the RTX 4070 Super, you're not getting quite as much out of those ultra-fast gaming CPUs because the GPUs are a little bit slower. But 32 gigs of system RAM, 2 thumbs up there, 1TB NVMe SSD, $1,649. Again, just as expensive as the one we just looked at with the RTX 4070 Ti Super. If you're looking for a more premium system, basically, this is the one to pick. But dropping down about $200, you can see what we primarily dropped here is we've dropped down to the Ryzen 7700X. The 7700X CPU, not quite as fast as the 7800X 3D in gaming out there, a little bit faster in terms of multi-threaded production work, but these are gaming PCs. You want to know the fastest gaming one, this is slightly slower for it. Although this does have a 360mm all-in-one liquid cooler, so that's 2 thumbs up there. This is the Montech Sky 2 case. It's kind of a nice atrium style PC case, plenty of good airflow on it. And this does come with a 1TB NVMe SSD along with that 32 gigs of RAM. So this to me is the better price to performance system if you don't need absolute maximum performance. Now, I have additional models linked down in the video description that you can check out. We're going to just go really quickly through the rest of these here. But if you want to drop down in price, look at this, like $250 basically. As long as you don't care about like getting that super cool atrium style case, you don't care about the amazing 360mm all-in-one liquid cooler, and you don't mind dropping down in terms of CPU power, you can get an RTX 4070 Super PC like the ABS Cyclone here for $1,300, and this is actually $1,349. $1,349. Actually, I guess it's $300 less. I do my math wrong there because it's got the $50 promo code, and I don't know how long these promo codes are going to last. Obviously, we're in the Black Friday holiday shopping period right now. There's going to be really, really good deals. In fact, I would say this is a pretty insane deal as it is. Good RAM on it, 32 gigs, a DDR5 6000. It does have a liquid cooler. It's just a 120mm. It's just this little guy here, which is perfectly adequate for the CPU that we're using here, which is the Ryzen 7700X. Again, perfectly adequate CPU for this GPU. If yes, the 7800X 3D, the faster CPU, will get more frames out of this GPU, but we're only talking a little bit more frames at this GPU level on it. Overall, again, 1TB NVMe SSD. The other thing I do like about ABS, again, they do list everything that you're getting in here, including the motherboard and everything else with it. I really do like this setup here for $1,349. This is a pretty insane deal. Dropping down in price a little bit further, we got $1,229, and now we're at an RTX 4070. Now, this is the non-super version. Still 12 gigs of VRAM on it. Still pretty fast GPU out there. Obviously, the Super's a little bit faster. And we've made some other compromises here, but I think overall still a very, very solid system, especially if you don't have a ton of money to spend out there and you want to get into 1440p gaming. We've got a Ryzen 5 7600X, yet 7600X is still a very, very performative gaming CPU. The system that's sitting next to me that runs my entire recording studio and a much bigger GPU than this is a Ryzen 7600X. So it's really, really good, especially for this kind of application here. 16 gigs of RAM. I'd love to see 32 gigs on it, but listen, $1,229. We're already getting to that price point where we're probably getting out of the 32 gigabyte system RAM area. 16 gigs will still be enough for the vast majority of titles out there. You won't have any problems. 1TB NVMe SSD on it. Again, $1,229, especially comes with the Indiana Jones game bundle as well. This is a great holiday deal. Moving over to the ABS Ruby here for $1,049. This is a really, really good deal too. I think Newegg is just kind of killing it right now on the holiday deals. Remember to check everything down listed in the video description. I'm going to switch those out as I find deals like this. I just found this one a second ago. go. So this has an older CPU, a Ryzen 5600, which I think is still perfectly adequate for the GPU that we're using here, which is an RTX 4060 Ti, but we're using the RTX 4060 Ti 16 gigabyte version. The 8 gigabyte version of this GPU is terrible. That 8 gigabytes really bottlenecks that GPU, makes it absolutely terrible. I don't know why NVIDIA produced 8 gigabyte versions of them. The 16 gig versions like this are the ones you want to look for. And this one will call out, it is specifically using the 16 gigabyte, which is 2 thumbs up. 16 gigs of system RAM, so now we're using DDR4 because the Ryzen 5600 will only use DDR4. That's absolutely fine. 1 terabyte NVMe. This is a great budget gaming system if you want to get into 1440p gaming. Let's jump into the best pre-built gaming PCs under $1,000. So best under $1,000 pre-built gaming PCs right now. And generally we're going to find the RTX 3060 12 gigabyte is the GPU that we're looking for here. It has enough VRAM. People, what about the 4060? It only has 8 gigs of VRAM. It's only slightly faster than the 3060. I'd get the 3060 12 gigabyte. That way you don't have to put up with games that aren't going to function well when you don't have enough VRAM here. I like something like this, the Skytech Shadow. This has a Ryzen 5600X for the CPU, perfectly adequate CPU. You also find these with like an i5 12400F or 12400, an Intel CPU. They have the same performance level. Those CPUs are identical in terms of their performance overall. And when you see these, a lot will just say RTX 3060. Note there's an 8 gigabyte version of the RTX 3060. You do not want to get that because not only does it have less VRAM, it's actually a cut down version of the 3060. NVIDIA should have called the card something else. It's very confusing to give it the same name, but this also has 16 gigs of RAM, 3200 CL16, absolutely great. And I love this. It has a budget tower air cooler in it. It's all RGB. It's got great airflow to it. $929. This is essentially what you're looking to spend out there. You can find slightly more cut down versions of it, especially on sale right now. This is Zotac. Zotac makes gaming GPUs, but they also do pre-built systems like this. This is their gaming mech hero. Very similar specs to what we just saw. A couple of things that I don't like as much. Again, you're saving $30. So if you got to save the $30, if that's important to you, this system will probably be just fine. It comes with the downdraft style stock cooler. Gonna be a little more noisy out there. Your CPU is gonna run a little hotter. And then in terms of the airflow for this case, it's got a big metal sheet in front of it, and it's just the side slits. I don't absolutely love the airflow to it. That being said, these are lower heat components. They're not gonna require that much cooling to them, although I would like to see a little bit better airflow here. And then this one comes with a 500 gigabyte NVMe SSD and a 1 terabyte hard drive. I didn't realize it. We're still using a hard drive in 2024. So you're basically kind of cutting more and more. You're almost cutting down to the bone for systems like this. That's why I do like that Skytech one. Spend that extra $30, get that slightly more premium system. All right, moving over to the best cheap pre-built gaming PC in 2024. And honestly, we're in the deal season right now. These deals are going to come and go. They often come in here for something like this, for instance, over at Walmart right now for $7.99, and then tomorrow they're gone. So check those links down in the video description. I'm going to keep finding the best deals out there. Right now, this is a really good deal. Skytech Archangel out there. It's got an i5 12400F. Remember, those were not degrading. Those CPUs are absolutely fine. Same performance as a Ryzen 5600X, by the way, and an RTX 4060 along with a 1 terabyte NVMe SSD and 16 gigs of RAM. It's probably DDR4 RAM. Comes with a budget tower air cooler. Comes with a nice RGB looking case to it. Overall for $799. Again, I would love to get to 12 gigabytes of VRAM here for our GPU to be able to play any title at 1080p or 1440p. But if you're on a tight budget, this is a great place to start. Similar system over at Newegg right now. This is by iBuyPower. This is the Ryzen 5 5500, slightly slower than that i5 12400, and with the RTX 4060 8 gigabyte again, 16 gigs of DDR4 system RAM, 1 terabyte NVMe SSD. So maybe if that other one at Walmart sells out, I would go to this one next. It also has a budget tower air cooler that's RGB on it, looks super awesome. Again, great deal here for about $800. That's about what you're looking to spend. Remember, everything is linked down in the video description. Check out those links for the current best deals out there right now and current pricing and availability in your region. And if you got value out of this video, please give it a like. It makes a huge difference to the channel. And we'll catch you on the next one.